morning and welcome to this presentation of our weekend edition, and it's a wonderful day out there today once again, and I'd like to welcome you and hope you've had a wonderful morning so far, and settle down with a nice cup of coffee. Yes, right, let's get this show on the road. Well, in today's news you'll get Victoria announced 43 new cases on Friday and 9 more deaths as the state tries to meet the reopening threshold set out on Sunday. New South Wales has recorded 10 new cases of coronavirus, including 4 linked to the known clusters. The hospital cluster remains at 14 cases. However, a previous case has been excluded. The Victorian government is facing scrutiny as it surveillance practices and the strict 8 p.m. curfew as the state moves closer to beginning of its reopening process. So everyone's holding their breaths as to the reopening and if everything goes okay. The world has passed 28 million cases and 911,000 deaths, according to Johns Hopkins report. That's the report that we follow. But first, let's take a look at the weather for this weekend. As you can see outside, it's a wonderful, wonderful day out there. And a beautiful view from our studios there. Well, the forecast for the rest of Saturday is maximum of 23, partly cloudy. Chance of rain is 20%. Brisbane area partly cloudy and with the slight chance of shower about the Bayside suburbs early morning and again late this afternoon and evening. Near 0% chance of rain elsewhere. Winds southeasterly 15 to 20 kilometers per hour, trending northeast to north-southeasterly 15 to 25 kilometers in the morning, then becoming light in the evening. Sun protection is recommended. Fire danger, of course, at this time of the year is high, but Brisbane City Council has allowed fire pits in the backyards. Well, but always be careful, you're playing with fire. And the UV protection is going to reach 7, which is pretty high. Well, let's take a very quick look at what tomorrow might look like. Minimum of 13 and a maximum of 24 for tomorrow. This Sunday, partly cloudy, chance of rain is 20%. And Brisbane area, partly cloudy, slight 20% chance of shower in the late morning and afternoon. Light winds becoming east to northeasterly, 15 to 25. Pretty much the speeds that we have, wind speeds that we have today. Sun protection is recommended again tomorrow from 8:30 till about 2:40 p.m. with the UV index again being on 17. Well, Monday when we come back, it will be looking like minimum of 13 and a maximum of 26 with a 5% chance of rain. Light winds and sun protection obviously is recommended for that time of the day as well. Well, right now, moving back to the news, let's go to our main stories and the headlines.
The top stories on ABC News. Rio Tinto executives stood down by the company will be asked to appear again at a federal inquiry into the destruction of ancient rock shelters in the Pilbara. The 3 executives, who include CEO Jean-Sébastien Jacques, will step aside. The 46,000-year-old Juukan Gorge caves in the Pilbara were destroyed in May as part of expansion works. Melbourne's 14-day coronavirus case average has dropped for the 4th consecutive day. Regional Victoria remains poised to potentially skip a step when reopening. The state has recorded 43 new cases of coronavirus and 9 deaths, taking the toll to 710. Australia has offered Papua New Guinea a $135 million loan to help with the impact of the coronavirus pandemic. Last year, Canberra credited PNG $440 million after it considered going to China for help with refinancing its loans. Australia has avoided direct budget support for the past 20 years. And the death toll is rising in bushfires wreaking havoc across the west coast of the United States. Blazes are burning in California, Washington and Oregon, where 500,000 people have been told to evacuate their homes.
Mr. Speaker, let me make it very clear. I understand that a lot of decisions are made and they have impacts on families. Some of these cases are heartbreaking, absolutely heartbreaking. We also have to recognise that the measures we have in place are working. The measures we've put in place in terms of our borders are keeping Queenslanders safe.
So the measures that have been put in place are to keeping Queensland safe. But as we know, yesterday, the Black Lives Matters and the two rallies because of their death in custody happened here in Brisbane. Let's take a look at how it all unfolded yesterday. Scene there was that they took to the road when they were, their permit did not allow them to go on the road itself.
No justice, no peace. No racist police. No justice, no peace. Everybody, coming around, everybody paint your hands red now. Blood on your heads!
So these are the scenes there from the Black Lives Matters protest rally yesterday. As we know, it broke out and there were scuffles as well. And it was, well, their permit did not allow them to go actually on the road. Their route was mapped out in the application. And of course, when they went out on the road, extra police had to be called in to control the situation there. Well, right now, in this segment of the main news, of course, the anniversary of 9/11 in America, because you know our timings are a little bit different. So John Biden and of course Donald Trump both visited the shrine, but they both went at different times. Here's a clip of when President Trump visited the shrine.
Good morning and welcome to Flight 93 National Memorial. My name is Stephen Clark, and I have the honor of serving as the superintendent at this very special place. The National Park Service is honored and deeply humbled to serve as the steward of this 2,200-acre memorial dedicated in the memory of 40 amazing heroes. On this day, 19 years ago, the passengers and crew members of Flight 93 bonded together and prevented their hijacked airplane from reaching its intended target, Washington, D.C., a mere 18 minutes flying time from this sacred ground behind me, which today marks their final resting place. Their sacrifice that morning saved an untold number of lives. Since that September day, these special people have always been remembered as heroes to America and around the world. The passengers and crew members at Flight 93 continue to be a testament to the best of humankind, showing incredible strength and resilience in response to an unprecedented set of challenging circumstances. We remember, and again today, on this special day, come together once again to honor them. Mr. President, our First Lady, Secretary Bernhardt, welcome back to this very special place. To Secretary Chow, representing the Department of Transportation, to members of Congress, our township, county, state, and federal officials, and to the many Flight 93 National Memorial ambassadors here with us this morning, welcome. To so many who are unable to be with us this morning and who are watching the ceremony remotely from around this nation and from around the world, welcome. Please know you are all with us in spirit. And to the families of Flight 93, those here this morning and those unable to attend, we honor your loved one's sacrifice, and we will be eternally grateful. It is truly powerful that we can come together on this day as a nation, pause, and take the time to honor those we lost on the morning of September 11th, here at Flight 93, at the Pentagon, and in New York. I would invite you all to please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance. Please remain standing following the pledge for a moment of reflection led by Reverend Stephen McEwen, who served as the chaplain for the FBI Pittsburgh Division on September 11th and continues to serve in this role today. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Please remain standing.
Let us pray. Most merciful God, as we gather here, 19 years has passed since the sacrifice of those we remember today. With them too are all the agencies and people involved. And we pray too for those who have become ill from being here, and those as time has passed also died, simply by doing their investigation. We bring especially and commit to your care all the families who lost someone that day, whose life was forever changed, and whose faith was deeply challenged. Those of us who were present know in our hearts something of that pain and suffering. As the years pass, may these families here and throughout the world know one never gets over it but by your mighty help gets through it. And so we commit this different kind of gathering to you. And we ask in all our hearts that you will bless and sanctify this place, that all who visit experience something of your love and presence, that it is a holy place where mingled with the sadness there is a feeling of victory and the eternal knowledge that all are forevermore in your presence and share in your resurrection life. And may these words of the Celtic prayer remain in our hearts. Circle us, O God, keep hope within and despair without. Circle us, O God, keep peace within, keep turmoil out. Circle us, O God, keep calm within, keep storms without. Circle us, O God, keep strength within, keep weakness out. In your most holy name we pray. Amen.
And with the
Sandy Law Bradshaw. Marion R. Britton.
All families display receive the least
to the family members of Flight 93, today every heartbeat in America is wedded to yours. Your pain and anguish is the shared grief of our whole nation. The memory of your treasured loved ones will inspire America for all time to come. The heroes of Flight 93 are an everlasting reminder that no matter the danger, no matter the threat, no matter the odds, America will always rise up, stand tall, and fight back. To every 9/11 member all across this nation, the First Lady and I come to this hallowed ground, deeply aware that we cannot fill the void in your heart or erase the terrible sorrow of this day, the agony renewed, the nightmare relived, the wounds reopened, the last treasured words played over and over again in your minds. But while we cannot erase your pain, we can help to shoulder your burden. We promise that unwavering love that you so want and need, support, devotion, and the very special devotion of all Americans. On that September morning when America was under attack, the battle turned in the skies above this field. Soon after taking off from Newark, New Jersey, radical Islamic terrorists seized control of United 93. Other hijacked planes struck the North Tower of the World Trade Center, and then the South Tower, and then the Pentagon. The terrorists on Flight 93 had a fourth target in mind. It was called our nation's capital. They were just 20 minutes away from reaching their sinister objective. The only thing that stood between the enemy and a deadly strike at the heart of American democracy was the courage and resolve of 40 men and women, the amazing passengers and crew of Flight 93. Donald and Jean Peterson were grandparents traveling to vacation in California. Diora Bodley was a student headed back to college. Richard Wardagdo was returning from celebrating his grandmother's 100th birthday. Lauren Katosi Grincolas was 3 months pregnant with her first child. Every passenger and crew member on the plane had a life filled with love and joy, friends and family, radiant hopes, and limitless dreams. When the plane was hijacked, they called their families and learned that America was also under attack. Then they faced the most fateful moment of their lives. Through the heartache and the tears, they prayed to God. They placed their last calls home. They whispered the immortal words, "I love you." Today those words ring out across these sacred grounds, and they shine down on us from heaven above. When terrorists raced to destroy the seat of our democracy, the 40 of Flight 93 did the most American of things. They took a vote, and then they acted. Together they charged the cockpit. They confronted the pure evil. And in their last act on this earth, they saved our capital. In this Pennsylvania field, the 40 intrepid souls of Flight 93 died as true heroes. Their momentous deeds will outlive us all. In the days and weeks after 9/11, citizens of all faiths, background, colors, and creeds came together, prayed together, mourned together, and rebuilt together. The song, "God Bless America," became a rallying cry for the nation. We were united by our conviction that America was the world's most exceptional country, blessed with the most incredible heroes, and that this was a land worth defending with our very last breath. It was a unity based on love for our families, care for our neighbors, loyalty to our fellow citizens, pride in our great flag, gratitude for our police and first responders, faith in God, and a refusal to bend our will to the depraved forces of violence, intimidation, oppression, and evil. In New York, Arlington, and Shanksville, people raced into the suffocating smoke and rubble. At Ground Zero, the world witnessed the miracle of American courage and sacrifice. As ash rained down, police officers, first responders, and firefighters ran into the fires of hell. On that day, more than 400 first responders gave their lives, including 23 New York City police officers, 37 Port Authority workers, and 343 New York City firefighters. Today we honor their extraordinary sacrifice and every first responder who keeps America safe. With us today is David D'Amato, a retired Chicago police officer and a current officer of the Navy Reserves. On 9/11.
So that was the service at the 9/11 shrine. Well, right now, let's take a look at what's been happening locally as well. As we know, there have been some announcements that have been made within the Parliament and a bit of reshuffle that's going to take place. Let's take a look at what's happened. So, Natural Resources Minister Anthony Lyon, joins the Commodities Minister Coralie Aubeck in deciding not to recontest the October 31st Queensland election. Mr. Lynham, Labor's two-term member for Stafford, told the State Parliament that he could not continue to represent his constituents 100%. And while trying to maintain his registration as a maxifocal surgeon, the people of Stafford indeed deserve 100%, Lynham said. Opting to instead focus on his medical career. Like Aureg, the member for Madrimbaga, Minister Lynham had denied retirement rumours and speculations of factual realizations in the days leading up to the announcement. There is an speculation that the State Development, Tourism and Innovation Minister Kate Jones might follow suit. Mr. Lynham chose to confirm his intentions on the last sitting day of Parliament, which had already a raucous affair due to the debate over the border restriction and the budget management during the pandemic. Mr. Lynham might have one last portfolio matter to deal with. Last week, he received his interim report from Queensland Coal Mining Board of Inquiry and asked for advice on what information about the safety issue can be released and act on without jeopardizing any potential future prosecutions if Labor is re-elected. Premier Anastasia Palaszczuk has undertaken her second cabinet reshuffle in 6 months after long-time Deputy Premier Jackie Trad stepped down in May. Opposition leader Deb Franklinton led the attack, obviously, on the government in the question time on Thursday, criticizing the apparent contradictions in the border exemptions policies. Ms. Palaszczuk again accused the LNP of politicizing the sensitive issues. The LNP, in turn, copped an unanticipated barrage of complaints and allegations from former member Jason Costigan, who was disendorsed over his dealings with people. Mr. Costigan might not hold the seat of Whitsunday on his own. And Speaker Curtis Pitt is also considering a last-ditch effort from the LNP to force more scrutiny on the government. Frontbencher Tim Nicholls said the appropriation bills introduced after Treasurer Cameron Dick's budget update this week were unconstitutional as they were not sent off for a committee scrutiny. Mr. Dick also has offered himself up for a short period of committee scrutiny tomorrow, and he told Parliament he had acted in accordance with the Constitution. He said he had advised that the bills were not for a full budget period and therefore did not require a referral to the committee because it was not a full budget. Cut and paste your script, as they say. So, there you are, up to date on Australian Indian Radio and Brisbane Indian Times weekend edition of our daily updates. And as we have heard, there's a lot of reshuffling that's been going on there, and how is all this going to fare up in the coming elections? That is what we will have to wait and see. Well, right now, let's go to the news in brief. First up is our Premier.
We're in a global pandemic at the moment. It is tough on everybody. And let me make it very clear, I don't make those decisions. I said to the Prime Minister I would refer it to the Chief Health Officer, and I did that. No, they're under. It's actually her decision. Under the Act, it's her decision. You've got to have someone who. You've got to take the clinical advice here. We're dealing with a health pandemic. It is absolutely tragic. It is heartbreaking. Families are not together at the moment. There are people at Heathrow waiting to come back home. There are people all around the world waiting to come back home. There are people who can't go and see babies or loved ones in Victoria. There's people who can't go and see people over in Western Australia. It is absolutely heartbreaking and gut-wrenching.
And as he mentioned, it's absolutely heartbreaking to see, the situation. It is very hard also in her position to be making the decisions, of course, based on the advice from the Department of Health, of course. So there's many things to be considered, not just, one or two things that has to be taken into account. Well, right now, let's go to Victoria, where Victoria has recorded 43 new coronavirus cases and 9 deaths. So let's hear from Premier Daniel Andrews.
In terms of regional local government areas, so regional Victoria under stage 3, there are 74 active cases. So again, low numbers in regional Victoria, and they remain low. The Colac has 33 active cases, so 4 new there. Greater Geelong has 10 active cases, 1 new. Greater Bendigo, 2 active cases, 1 new. And Ballarat has no active cases. The rolling average 28 August to 10 September, Metro is 65.3, regional Victoria is 4.7. So regional Victoria is poised to take at least a step and potentially 2 steps. We'll have more to say about that next week as we get closer to that 14-day marker, as we had indicated. But again, it's an opportunity for us to say thank you to every single regional Victorian in a big regional city to the smallest of country towns. They're doing a mighty job in coming forward, getting tested, following the rules, and that's why we've been able to drive these numbers down. As I've said a few times now, you can't possibly hope to open up and keep numbers low if you don't first get those numbers low as you possibly can. That's exactly what's occurring in regional Victoria, and there is great cause for optimism and to be hopeful that what's happened in regional Victoria is proof positive that this strategy can work, is working, and will continue to work. And that's something that's not just important for regional Victoria, but I think it sends a really clear message to people in Metro Melbourne as well, that it is possible to drive these numbers down to a very low level and then keep them low. And that's the experience in regional Victoria over recent weeks and months.
So the idea is to keep the numbers low and keep them there, and before everything reopens. Well, he too has got a tough job there. Well, right now let's go to Western Australia, where Treasurer Ben White says that corporate Australia will learn from Rio Tinto's fallout. So Western Australia next up.
The announcement by the Rio Tinto board today is significant. There was a certain sense, particularly over the last week, of inevitability around these announcements. But I think what it does do, and I've made this point specifically about Rio Tinto losing connection with the Pilbara and Western Australia, the place in which it generates 75% of its revenues, which meant that when a crisis occurred, it didn't have the ballast and the relationships to reach into to help guide their way through. But it is also a broader message and a broader lesson for corporate Australia about making sure you have very strong connections to your local communities in which you operate. And I don't mean having people in your community development team, but I mean at the very senior levels of corporate Australia, having very clear understandings and deep connections and relationships in where you operate, so that you get an understanding of people's expectations of what's important to them, so that these things can be avoided in the future. And relationships are so important. Ultimately, governments can legislate outcomes, but really it's up to boards to have a thorough understanding around the circumstances in which they operate. This isn't new. Any basic company director's course will tell you that. But for whatever reason, over the last 10 years or so, specifically to Rio Tinto, who I've always viewed as the leaders when it comes to partnerships with Aboriginal people here in Western Australia, had lost connection at the board level with the Pilbara region and in Western Australia more broadly. That left them exposed when this crisis occurred. So this isn't a positive thing for Western Australia. I'm keen now for the board and the company to move on, learn the lessons that it needs to learn, and become again, hopefully, the leader in those partnerships between Aboriginal people and a global mining company.
Very, very important to keep that, relationship and not forget, the cultural sensitivities there. As the Treasurer said, Ben White said that, Rio Tinto has long been recognised as one which had a good connection with the Indigenous people and had good working knowledge of their customs and traditions, and especially the traditional and sacred sites. So, often a company, is only as good as its workers, and how sometimes, things get moving and things get done, and, sometimes management overlooks all those things because they think, the team below has done the right thing as well. So, things like that happen. Well, right now, let's go to New South Wales, where Deputy Premier backs down on the crossbench threat. So New South Wales Liberals leader John Barilaro is talking about the city's crisis, talking with the Premier that what he did yesterday was his victory.
I think today, people know what the koala said and what the impact it has on regional rural New South Wales. The agreement this morning with the Premier was all about stability. We never wanted to blow up the coalition, but yesterday we had to do what we had to do to bring this high up on the agenda of the government and of cabinet. Now, with the agreement with the Premier this morning, now this will be on the next agenda item, high up. More importantly, it's going to put some transparency, because all of you are going to be asking what is the outcome of the SEP, and every single cabinet minister will now have to point to their position when it comes to the SEP. So yesterday was all about the policy, all about the regions, and all about getting this to the executive.
But after all this, what have you walked away with? After threatening to blow it up, what have you walked away with?
This was about nothing about walking away with anything but, the regions have this issue on the agenda. This was always about policy. I don't know why people are getting excited about the coalition, but this is all about policy, and the policy issue that was going to impact on our regions. And you know what? I'm excited about that.
No regrets.
What regrets is there? Today is a win for the regions. It's a win for farmers. It's a win for those that have been fighting the koala SEP. It's New South Wales farmers, our stakeholders, the forestry industry. We get a chance now to actually get this on the agenda, off cabinet, high up on the agenda. But more important, the conversation I had with the Premier this morning, I have a lot of confidence in where this will actually end up. We had our position strong yesterday. This morning, it was great to have the conversation with the Premier and the Treasurer, and we were able to get a decision that now means there's going to be a pathway for a resolution, and I'm confident, because of the conversation this morning, that resolution will be where we'll be comfortable. We made a compromise about when. She's made a compromise about it becoming an agenda item, and today, actually it's regional and rural New South Wales. Their voice has been heard, and that was my job. But the best part is, my party is so united about an issue on policy, and you know what? This is what we should be fighting for.
And the party is united on that policy issue, which is great to see. And as he mentioned yesterday, that he was speaking on behalf of the Nationals and not the coalition overall. Well, right now, let's go to Northern Territory, where Michael Gunner says Northern Territory will open its borders to Greater Sydney residents. So Northern Territory up next.
This morning, Dr. Heggie advised that he is now satisfied with the progress that's being made in Sydney to recommend a change to their hotspot status. This is for the following reasons. First, there is now a sustained downward trend of new cases in Sydney over time, including 7 straight days of 10 or fewer new cases. Second, the contact tracing and containment system in New South Wales is superb. They are catching and containing the virus very quickly. It is not spreading. Third, the level of testing being done and the links of almost all new cases to known clusters gives us a high degree of confidence that there are no known outbreaks occurring. For these reasons, the Northern Territory will plan to remove the hotspot status declaration for Greater Sydney in 28 days' time. From Friday, October 9, arrivals from Greater Sydney will not need to undertake 14 days of supervised quarantine. We are deliberately waiting another 4 weeks, 2 full replication cycles, so we can keep seeing the trend go down. A 4-week buffer gives Sydney more time to keep beating the virus, and it gives us the time and flexibility we need to change our plan if necessary. This is the same cautious approach we took with our borders the first time round, and it worked. When we were told to open the borders straight away, we said no. And when things got worse in Victoria and Sydney, we kept them closed. We cannot predict the future, but we can plan for it. So if something happens, if things change, if the trend goes back up in Sydney, we will not hesitate to keep their hotspot status in place for as long as we need to. But if they continue to make the progress they are making, as we expect they will, we can welcome Sydney-siders back to the Territory next month. This is about giving people, especially Territorians, as much notice as possible and as much certainty as possible in these uncertain times.
So there is a sign of times to come. So from Northern Territory, we go right down to Tasmania. But this time, we're going to look at a slightly different issue. As we know, during the week, we covered Are You OK campaign. So this is about suicide prevention campaign and mental health. With that report, we go straight to Tasmania.
We gather united in our commitment to bring hope and help to people where the light no longer shines. We remember those lost to suicide and acknowledge the pain for those left behind. We are thankful for the support, the love and empathy that we share together.
I guess it was pretty tough being a young boy. Just my mum and my sister were left, and so it felt like a fair bit had died with me because I was so close to my dad. He was having some moral troubles in his life, and I guess he didn't want to hurt people, so he decided to hurt himself. Suicide should be spoken about. Unfortunately, a lot of people have had experience with it, and since doing this job and me speaking about it more, people do speak to me a bit more, and I guess it's just about being willing to say that, you know, it is out there and you have to watch out for it. And it's about having good mental health just like good physical health. Seek out what makes you feel happy. I mean, that's what doing mental health is, you know. If it's golf, if it's walking, like if it's doing anything that you know deep down does make you happy and you're not avoiding something, I think you should do it.
As a community, we walk together, supporting people in crisis and preventing suicide. We commit to reducing stigma and ignorance that are barriers to people accessing the help they deserve. We invite people in distress to reach out for support. We encourage those concerned about someone to engage, to listen and connect them with care.
It's stories from people who think that there's nothing more that they can do. When they're at their complete wit's end, they feel like they are more of a burden to people than, you know, and they don't want people don't want them around anymore. Some of the hardest things to listen to, but really, really beautiful when you can find small moments to turn that around for somebody and kind of challenge that thinking and help them find some hope. I think this year in particular, I think there is a different awareness about suicide and mental health issues and what leads somebody to lose hope to the point that they contemplate suicide. So I think, you know, this is always an important week, but especially this year I think it's important for people to recognise that it's very, very normal to think about suicide. It's very normal to have those thoughts, and the next step is what you do with them. So knowing where to go and what to do if you are having those thoughts, and not I guess doing it all yourself. There are other people who can help.
So there are people who can help, and it is very, very important to seek that help and seek that assistance, and always having that conversation. As we know, a conversation can save the life. A conversation can change the situation. So, you know, it's no use just suffering in silence or all alone. So, but if you ever see anyone, or if you ever, recognize the symptoms, reach out to someone and talk about it. You know, a conversation saves a lot. And conversation, when we talk about conversations, you know, it's verbal. When you're sitting down and actually talking to someone, as we know, you could be sending messages and things. That's still okay. But there's nothing like a good face-to-face, sit down and talking with someone and say, hey, are you okay? So what's going? Well, can we talk about this? Can you, tell me what's bothering you? You know, that conversation, a face-to-face conversation, always makes that very, very big difference. Well, ladies and gentlemen, right now, let's take a very quick look at the ads and take a very quick commercial break before we come to the ending segment of today.
ग्लोबनेट रियलिटी 1989 से लेकर अब तक का विश्वसनीय और माननीय ब्रिस्बेन का रियल एस्टेट एजेंट है। उषा चंद्रा, जो कि ग्लोबनेट की डायरेक्टर है, अपने ग्राहकों को ईमानदार और एथिक सर्विसेज देती हैं। अगर आप ब्रिस्बेन की प्रॉपर्टी में पूंजी लगाना चाहते हैं और आप चाहते हैं कि आपकी प्रॉपर्टी को प्रोफेशनली मैनेज किया जाए, तो आप आज ही कांटेक्ट कीजिए उषा चंद्रा को। लैंडलाइन नंबर है 38654466 और मोबाइल नंबर है 0419775416। और आप प्रॉपर्टी की अधिक जानकारी और करंट अपडेट्स के लिए हमारी वेबसाइट पे लॉगिन कर सकते हैं। हमारी वेबसाइट है www.globenetreality.com.au। ग्लोबनेट रियलिटी आपका अपना लोकल रियल एस्टेट एजेंट है। हमारा पता है ग्लोबनेट रियलिटी, शॉप नंबर 5, 2281 सैंडगेट रोड, बुंदल, क्वींसलैंड। ग्लोबनेट रियलिटी, रियल एस्टेट इज अवर वर्ल्ड।
And real estate is the world, of course. Well, right now, let's go and look at the coronavirus cases and see where we are at this point in time up to the figures, and as we do this roundup every week with Jeremy Fernandez. So right now, the latest on the world's fight against coronavirus.
Hello, I'm Jeremy Fernandez. Coming up on the virus, the Prime Minister commits $1.7 billion to securing Australia supplies for 2 potential vaccines, but one of them has now suffered a setback. Plus, the Queensland Premier sparks a backlash over a decision to deny a woman in quarantine the right to attend her father's funeral. But first, Victoria has a roadmap to recovery. A 4-stage plan out of lockdown was laid out by Daniel Andrews at the weekend. Getting from one stage to the next will require a significant and sustained fall in case numbers in the Victorian community. Even then, it'll take until the end of November to get the final stage and the sort of lifestyle the rest of the nation has come to experience as the new normal.
First step is next Monday, when the curfew will start an hour later. Outdoor activity will be allowed with one other person for up to 2 hours. Playgrounds can reopen, and people living alone will be allowed to have one nominated visitor. Government-commissioned modelling shows a 64% chance of a third wave if Victoria opened up in 2 weeks' time.
We need to find that sweet spot between the length of the current lockdown and the risk of resurgence.
By the end of the month, if the average daily new cases drops below 50, Melbourne can take the second step. It includes public gatherings of up to 5 people from 2 different households, childcare reopening, and restrictions will also be eased for some industries, including construction and manufacturing.
There are about 101,000 workers who can come back into the workforce that currently can't work.
2 days after the Gabba hosts the grand final, and if the daily average new cases drops to less than 5 over 2 weeks, Melbourne can take the third step. Curfew would be scrapped and stay-at-home orders would be lifted, meaning people could leave their 5-kilometre zone. Outdoor public gatherings would increase to 10 people, and there'd be home visits for up to 5 people in a new household bubble. There'll also be the potential stage return of other grades to the classroom. If no new cases are recorded for 14 days by November 23, Melbourne can take a final step. With public...
The final step is the date, is step 4 is 23rd of November. Well, that is if there's no new cases in 14 days. Well, right now it's time to look at the events that are being supported or that we been notified of. And don't forget, if you have any function or event that you'd like to talk about, we'd like to welcome you on the show. And if you have any functions and event that you'd like displayed on this billboard, we will gladly do that for you as well. Remember, a lot of these functions and events are now taking place virtually, or they are in a form of webinar or Zoom meetings, or whatever way it may be, or it might take place in person with restricted number of people. Well, right now, let's take a very quick look. ladies and gentlemen, with that, we'd like to say goodbye for today and enjoy the rest of the weekend, whatever's left of it. Go out and have fun with your family and with your friends, but always act responsibly. Wherever you're going, whatever you're doing, be mindful of the restrictions that are in place and be within those guidelines. As we know, many times it's very easy when you see people, when you meet people, to forget about the restrictions and the guidelines and go back to doing what you normally do. But I know, please be mindful. So until Monday, it's goodbye from me. Have a wonderful time, but above all, remain safe. See you then.